Hello, my good people. Thank you for tuning in to In the Paint podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Walker.
And I'm Casey Gutting. What up?
Hey, we're excited to have you guys rock with us the entire time. But Casey, they have to know where to find us.
Yeah, you guys can find us on all the usual spots: Spotify, iTunes, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at In the Paint Podcast. We'd also like to quickly give a shout out to our executive producers, Mr. Nick O'Connell and Mr. Bill Boyd. They made this thing happen.
And because they made it happen, we're going to give it all to y'all. So tune in and enjoy. Peace.
All right, welcome to another episode of In the Paint. We're here in the hallowed halls of Loyola High School in the middle of Los Angeles with the head coach himself, Mr. Jamal Adams. Coach, what's up? How you doing?
What up, fellas?
It's good to have you here, man.
Good to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. Jeff, how you doing, man?
Man, you know how I get when we have like really, really dope people that we're blessed to be around.
Yeah.
For me, he's the coach of Loyola High School, Columbia University, Ivy League graduate, an alumni of Loyola High School. He has had so much success on the basketball court, but prior to that, the guy financial advisory services at Merrill Lynch was super successful on the trading desk right when he got out of college in Columbia in the early 90s. We're going to talk about some crazy stuff. Like,
Dropping age on him real quick.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, he's 4 decades in.
I'm a veteran.
He's a veteran of the game.
KG
of the game.
But the stories I want to talk, we'll talk like music. We're going to talk hoops, obviously, because that's our common thread on everything and how we actually met each other. But we're going to talk like New York hip hop a little bit as well. And when he tells you his Wu-Tang story,
Wu-Tang Financial?
It's unbelievable. But hey, he is my big brother. He is the phrase brother from another mother. Look, we're basically blood without actually being blood, man. We met literally landing in Princeton or Newark, New Jersey, the airport. 2 big 6'5", 6'6" African American males in the back of a van before we go to headquarters at Merrill Lynch for a training program for the Black African American Financial Advisory Training Program. And I'm like, he stops me actually first. He's like, "You play ball?"
Like, wait a second. You look like you might hoop.
Yeah.
So we started laughing because the connection around basketball happened immediately. He's like, "I played for Columbia, in the early 90s, blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "Yo, I played at Siena College, Albany, New York." And then the shit that really just was crazy. And I go, "Yeah, my brother played at Holy Cross back in like the early," and he was like, "What's your brother's name?" Bill Walker. And Jamal, just take the story real quick.
Yeah. So then I go, "No." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, Bill Walker. Do you know him?" I said, "Well, freshman year, I think my 3rd game at Columbia, we go to a tournament at Hartford University, home of then Vin Baker. Vinny Baker was the dude at Hartford. Mm-hmm. Opening round of a 4-team tournament is Columbia versus Holy Cross.
Crusaders.
Young Jamal Adams, 6th man off the bench, defensive stopper, theoretically. Young senior Bill Walker is a walking bucket and is on fire. And the next horn I hear, "Jamal, you go guard him." And this dude is muscles on muscles on muscles.
Muscles. They call him like Apollo Creed because he kind of built like Apollo.
Yeah. Word.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jab step, efficient, veteran.
Yeah.
And he put knots on my head. Straight up.
Yeah.
Lots of buckets.
That real basketball talk? Was that one of those like, man, you know how you play against a guy who just gives it to you, and it's one of the ones that you remember forever?
Dude, it's
like,
the Wizard of Oz.
One?
Like, we're not in Kansas anymore,
yeah,
right?
Like, oh.
Like my freshman year in college, there was so many moments like where I thought like, oh, last year in high school, I rubbed that, I blocked that one, or I dunked that, or I get over and close that out, and guys are blocking your shot or dunking on you or any and all those things. And, there's levels to this, as people say, and that jump from high school to college is a real one. It's a really real one.
We were talking about that earlier today, just like the levels and sub-tiers of players in high school and now AAU, where it's like there's that 1% of like top 50, top 60 in the country that are just like noticeably, immediately you're like, that dude is special just because of his athletic ability, size, whatever. And then there's like this second tier of dudes who are still going to go probably big-time D1 or mid-range D1 that are great players. But you see the difference so quickly nowadays.
Well, this summer, my last 12 months. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit.
We get excited.
We'll talk why not.
We're going to talk all
AAU
that.
hoops and stuff.
But I want to say this. He is my brother. So my brother and my new brother in LA, who we've known each other, Jesus, man, like 18 years maybe.
Yeah, it's been a minute, bro.
Family man, award-winning coach.
Yeah.
Award-winning even when he was at Merrill Lynch. Award-winning on campus here at Loyola High School. He's won some of the most prestigious awards here on Loyola High School. He came back to teach econ and Afro-American studies and coach basketball when he was killing it on Wall Street. Mm-hmm. The man is a man amongst great men, but on top of that, he is a man for others, and he is helping produce the next younger generation of young men to go out in this world and set it on fire. We have Jamal Adams today.
Love it.
My man.
So now we can kick it in. Now we go high here. Jay, let's talk, man. Let's talk family. I think, especially with the current times that we're in, there's a heightened sense of community. There's a heightened sense of cherishing your loved ones and hugging your loved ones when you have the opportunity to do so. And I think what separates you, and also as a comparison to you with Kobe, is that you've always been about family. Your upbringing here in Los Angeles, I know your parents, I know your grandparents, I know your sisters, I knew your brother, and I know your children, I know your wife. So talk to us about your family. Talk to us about your LA family. Give us a little bit of your LA story, kind of just to get this thing rolling. All
right. I mean, I would first say, right, like, the way I think about family is that, right, it's our foundation and our center, right? For me, like my first family, my wife and my two kids, they're my center. They give me purpose. They give me joy. They give me motivation, right, to be my best self. I know both of my kids are watching everything I do, and I say they're kids. My daughter's 24 today, and my son turned 23 last week.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! But they're my center. And then what I would suggest is my ancestors, my parents and my grandparents and my great grandparents. In a very real way, man, I forged a path that I feel not a burden to uphold, but I'm motivated, and it's something that I strive to do, and from a positive standpoint, I want to be a pioneer and a trailblazer, much like that. To that point, mom and dad, both Cal grads, met in the Bay. Pops is as bright a man as I know, and has always instilled in me and my late brother and my sister, extreme pride of being not only black, but being an Adams. And then his father, Ed Adams, was a college basketball coach, coached at both Tuskegee and Texas Southern, won over 500 games before the NCAA was integrated. He is on the ballot for the Basketball Hall of Fame, hasn't quite made it in, but wow. The gym at Texas Southern is named the Ed Adams Gymnasium. Jeff always laughs at me because there's an article that was written, the mid 20th century, 1950s, that contributed my grandfather and some of his compatriots or contemporaries, at the black college basketball level as having invented the fast break. It was the game of basketball used to be that like you would score and like the gym.
I love this. Hold on.
Basketball in the 50s was how was it played?
Gentlemanly, you would allow the other team to get back on defense, and then you would walk up the floor, right? And
Peach baskets.
Yeah. So the brothers was like, "Nah, we gonna get that thing out and run." And so I think he had like an 81% winning percentage. I think I shorted him. I think he's got like 600 wins, but he. And unfortunately, I never met him. He died when my dad was 8. Then my grandmother remarried to a gentleman named Billy Matthews, who then was a high school football coach, coached my dad, who was a high school football All-American, and went on the Cal on a football scholarship. And my grandfather, after my dad's high school career, pursued collegiate work. So in 68, he got hired by Pepper Rogers and went to University of Kansas. 72, he got hired by Terry Donahue and came out here to UCLA. He was a running backs coach till 79. And then in 79, when I'm 7 years old, he gets hired with this zany coach out of Stanford who just got the job with the 49ers, a young Bill Walsh.
Oh, wow.
And now he was on that staff that, for lack of a better term, invented the West Coast offense. And was on the staff that won the first Niner Super Bowl in 81. I was 9 years old. Went to the playoff game, was there when Dwight Clark made the catch. Didn't get to go to the Super Bowl that year. It was in Pontiac, Michigan.
Ooh.
And,
Pontiac?
Yes.
In like the winter?
In the winter.
In January.
The NFL's got a little better at choosing their destinations.
There was a big, car investment in the NFL
probably,
at that point.
So mom and dad were like, I'm missing school. So obviously they won, and I'm a Niner fan, and so for the next, through 96, my grandfather coached in the NFL, and one of the pastimes for me every summer was to go to training camp, and he worked for 5 teams: the Niners, Eagles, Colts, Chiefs, and Lions. Was brilliant, African American. Was the offensive coordinator for the Colts in 84 to 86. But that's the highest he ever got, and there's all kinds of ceilings or things we could talk about.
Yeah.
But was often voted by his peers as the best running back coach in the NFL, and has some major wins. Won the Super Bowl in 81, drafted Christian Okoye, drafted Barry Sanders.
Nigerian Nightmare?
Yes.
Hold it.
That dude was
Nigerian Nightmare was a beast.
Yes.
Drafted.
He was on the staff that I got stories for days, but my 10th grade year, my grandfather calls me. He's like, I'm coming to LA. You want to hang out? I was like, of course. And he picked me up here at Loyola. Like, it was post. So it was like, got to be like March after the season. Picks me up. We go eat. And he's like, hey, we're going to drive out to the school, Azusa Pacific. I was like, all right. He's like, I got to scout this guy. His name's Christian Okoye. He's been playing football for a year.
Wow.
So crazy thing is, Jeff,
That's crazy.
SI's doing a cover story on him. And they're out there taking pictures of me and my grandfather with a stopwatch. He asked me to be the second watch on Christian Okoye running
the 40. Jeez.
And Christian Okoye's thighs are like freaking 5-gallon water jugs.
Yeah, right?
And he's running a 4.4.
That dude was a monster.
He was big in every way.
You remember we were talking about Derrick Henry this year about the same kind of build.
Yes.
And Okoye's name came up like a lot.
Well,
and that that's a perfect comparison to that.
He was a monster. I got a better Christian Okoye story. So that they draft him. I go to training camp the next year. So I'm older. I've got to be 15, 16, 17. I'm helping my grandfather in drills, and I don't know if you guys are familiar, but they have they call it a tape, right? Which has the center, guard, and then the gaps, and hit the A gap and the B gap and all this. Yeah. So they're doing a drill, and my grandfather's like, hey, I need you to be the center. I'm going to be the quarterback. They're running dummy, and they're hitting the holes, and it's a running back linebacker drill, and it's a thud drill. So, no tackle, but it's contact.
Yeah.
And they got 2 inside linebackers and the running back. Mm-hmm. And so I'm chase, my grandfather's a taskmaster, you better not be late for a snap. So I'm trying to get the balls quickly to him, and I snap it once, and he hands it off to Okoye, and I'm scrambling with my back to the play looking for a ball like this. And I swear on everything I know and love, and this is speaking about LA, I hear a sound that in my estimation, I thought they were shooting, wow! pow, like it was like a shotgun blast. And I turn around, right? Dino Hackett, and I can't remember the other linebacker, are laying on the ground. And Christian Okoye is sprinting straight away. And like that day, they said it was like the most violent 1-on-2 hit. Like 2 linebackers in him. Thud. He's running, and they're like this. Backs on the ground.
Like a cartoon.
Like a cartoon,
ground,
man. And it was the loudest sound. I mean, I went to training camp since I was 8 years old. I mean, I've seen NFL level hits.
Yeah.
It was the loudest thing I ever heard on a football field.
Yo.
Yeah.
This dude's name is a Nigerian nightmare
Nigerian
for
nightmare.
good reason.
And he's only the second best I've ever been around.
Who is
So
okay?
who's
So
the
who's
best?
Barry freaking Sanders.
Barry.
Yo, Barry
that's a
Sanders
different
in
kind, too,
practice,
like-
like we've seen the highlights. What I'm saying, like when they're messing around and they're like 7-on-7 Skelly without the offensive lineman, and it's like 2-hand touch. Cut it out, dude.
Yeah.
We're talking world-class athletes on the defensive side. They can't touch him.
Wow.
I mean, we talk about crossover, whoever you want.
Yeah.
Allen Iverson, or
Yeah.
yo, he was the cheat code.
That's kind of an interesting little like comparison. Like Barry Sanders is the Allen Iverson of running backs.
No doubt.
Just like you could not get hands on him.
Couldn't. Like his stop and start
Yeah.
were otherworldly.
I can't imagine seeing him without pads doing that stuff too. Because with pads, it's like, a quarter of a second slower. So without pads, when he's just screwing around, like that must have been like a video game.
Video game.
Yeah.
And again, the thing that's underestimated, about 5'8".
That's a good
But,
answer. How big is he? How big is he really?
his thighs are tree
Yeah.
trunks.
Yeah.
He's 5'8".
Yeah. Jeez.
Quiet.
Super quiet.
Super
professional.
quiet.
Yeah.
What I love about Barry Sanders was that whole adage, like when you score a touchdown, act like you've been there before. Just go hand the ball to the referee.
Yeah, him and Grandpa were really close. And unfortunately, so my grandfather had to retire from the NFL because he was diagnosed with Parkinson's in '94, and he got so bad with like his stiffness that he just couldn't. It wasn't safe for him to be on the sideline, so he retired in '96. And Barry and those guys kept playing, but yeah, man,
Wow.
The blessing of being around pros is watching those guys work and the level of detail. Like, one of my favorite things, like the crossover between football and basketball. Like, I love football for the strategy and the detail, right? And then it's the ultimate team game, right? And so I like to believe I was influenced by that. I know, Jeff, you coach with me. I like to be a detail-oriented guy. I like to have counters and run things, and I like to think that at a high school level, we're doing college prep basketball.
Man, without question, at the high school level, how you operate your offense, your defensive schemes are I can see they're of the DNA of how your family is involved in football. The strategy behind it, the counters are the counters. Yeah. And I haven't seen, there's outside of our brother Moose Bailey, there isn't anyone that watches more tape, that breaks down more defensive issues, that breaks down offense. Like Jamal, it's interesting that historically your family, that being the father of the fast break, Ed Adams,
the basketball royalty right here, man.
Wanted to play up tempo.
Yeah.
And the style of play that you play now is up tempo. Then you talk about your grandfather being part of the West Coast offense with Bill Walsh in the early 80s. It's up tempo. Yeah. Like, it's part of your DNA to be that way. So when I hear these stories, like, because I've heard some of them before, but hearing them now, it's really interesting to just walk back through them. These are even more detailed than I knew. And dude, you are the king of, details. You break things down to a level that's extremely important, and then you do it digestible enough where a young high school player should be able to understand and digest that if they truly are capable of getting to the next level.
Should.
Woo! Heated discussion. That's the end of the first quarter. I would like to welcome you back to the second quarter of In the Paint.
That's what I was kind of going to ask, actually, is like, how do you feel the dissemination of information to high school age kids? How is that best done with a complicated kind of an offense and concept? Because I would imagine like a lot of the kids probably just can't comprehend some of it.
It's a great question, Casey. And the first part I would say it's gotten harder. It's gotten harder, and the reason it's gotten harder is I think kids consume basketball in bite-sized portions. I think kids, they learn the game, and no disrespect, but ball is life, baller vision, courtside films,
Sure, all
like bites, right? And like that's only like it's a lot like Instagram, right? It's just the highlights of life, and it's basketball that way, right? And so getting kids to understand nuance, and then reading, right? Like, I think at the core I'm an educator, and there's a whole another side of the family. I think that speaks to that part of my DNA about just at the core being an educator, right? And to teach is I think tried and true good pedagogy is that you break things down to parts and build them up to a whole, and you don't skip steps. And I worry about the game, and long-winded answer to what you asked me is that what has always worked in the past doesn't always work as well now, because I think the world is used to skipping steps.
Yeah.
And kids are used to skipping steps, and there's so much information at their fingerprint in their iPhone or Android phone that there's a lot of ability to skip steps. And I just don't think anyone that's any good, and I've been around some really good young kids, has skipped the steps.
Yeah.
Like back in the day,
so
long division show
Like you
work.
can't
Yeah,
read.
yeah.
Like there's one thing, I say this all the time. I think a lot of basketball players, right, like can phonetically read a paragraph. That's one thing. But can you read it to understand it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's comprehension is what worries me about where our game, the game that the three of us love dearly, is going to be 25, 30, 40 years from now.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's going to be a separation of players because of that? The ones who can comprehend and the ones who can't? Like, do you feel like that gap's going to get bigger and kind of like the wave is going to crash the other way again? Does that make sense?
That's a great question. Well, I would suggest this, right? If you have IQ and can play, you're going to play the game for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bet that what we'll see, not just because of nutrition and things like a guy like LeBron, there'll be more 35-year-old vets in the league.
Yeah.
Because they know how to play.
Yeah.
Versus, I think the league is probably going to go back to the high school rules soon. Everyone's saying that. Probably the next year or two. Going to be collectively bargained. But I think young guys are going to be playing a lot of G League.
Yeah.
And a lot of these other, the path to the league won't be 18 and I'm Kobe or KG or LeBron and I'm a guy at 19, like Luka. Like those guys exist, but
they're like the 1%. Like those are the stories you hear about.
And the thing that I think that American hoopers need to hear is that the NBA is getting smart on sourcing the whole wide world.
Yeah.
The competition's bigger. And so if you can't, like it might be one thing to be the best kid in LA.
Yeah.
You better be better than the best kid in Shanghai and the best kid in Tel Aviv and the best kid in Lagos, Nigeria, too.
Well,
and every level, it just is harder and harder and harder to be that.
We had the conversation having beers, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. In any event, though, we started talking about, because I always have this thing like, white America, I'm just going to go there a little bit.
Good, yeah.
White America has this thing about how they can't go and play basketball. Like, the NBA is not something that white America should be doing anymore. Put the energy in some other places, i.e. volleyball, i.e. other sports, soccer.
Soccer,
and not
baseball,
compete,
whatever,
and not compete where maybe arguably the best athletes are in basketball and football. Like, kind of like just have given up on certain sports.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, overseas, the white guys overseas are playing it from such a young age, and they're learning the skills, and they're in the proper camps, and they're being trained on how to be great basketball players. And then when they come over here, they're more ready than, I will arguably say, the African-American kid who's 18, 19, 17 years old playing the game, the white kid who's 17, 18, 19, American kid. These European white kids are coming over here, balling out, immediately ready, because they haven't been afraid, one, of competition. And I think they've looked at competition, they've looked at the world, and they've watched the Jordans, the Kobes, the LeBrons over the course of the last 2 decades now. And they're like, I can fucking be that.
Yeah.
I'm going to work my ass off to be that. I'm not going to skip steps to be that. I'm not going to be afraid of competition to be that. I'm going to get myself out of, maybe it's the Eastern European poverty situation that might be there. Because in basketball, you can just throw that damn thing out, put a damn bicycle rim up, and you can fucking hoop.
Yeah.
And those kids are doing it. They're doing it in Lagos, Nigeria. They're doing it in Shanghai.
Yeah.
They don't do that shit here anymore. I can go, if I drive past a damn park right now, kids ain't hooping. But other parts of the globe, they're straight up hooping.
Every day.
Well, I mean, because this is the In the Paint and we get to talk everything on this podcast, I have a theory that I'm going to challenge that. You're right, but I'm going to challenge that in this regard. I don't think that has anything to do with competition. Not one bit. Not one bit. I think it has to do with inherently culture. So first, let me start on the European side, right? Or these other places in the world, those kids are hooping that hard because it's opportunity. It's to change class.
He went Ivy League, so of course he's fucking challenge me.
Raise it up a notch.
Take it up another level, and I'm going to raise my game.
But I'm going to tell you the American issue, right? So that's opportunity, that's economics, right? If I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's a Nigerian, immigrant into Greece, living in a one-room home with his folks, I could change my life by hooping. And he has changed the trajectory of the Antetokounmpos for the next 4 generations. That's an opportunity.
Yeah.
The issue in America is that basketball is the blackest space in America. Culturally, the way the vibe powers outside of ownership.
Yeah.
But from a culture standpoint, it is the epitome of Black America. Right? And therefore, if you're a balling American white kid playing basketball, you better be comfortable being the minority.
Yeah. Now, go Casey. Tell your story.
And if you can, you're there. If you're not,
Casey, tell your story because you are from a family of coaches as well.
Yeah.
Tell your story of Colorado. Tell about how your dad knew what the game is in order for you to be successful.
This lines up with exactly what you're talking about.
Thanks for challenging me,
That was
Jamal.
good. So I grew up between Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and Colorado. My dad was an assistant basketball coach at Gettysburg College when I was growing up. So I literally grew up on the court. The second I could be big enough to hold the ball, I was holding the ball. I was going to college practices and doing drills when I was like 6 and 7. So it was in my head from day one. We eventually moved to Colorado. Colorado, where I was super whitewashed. Like Northern Colorado, they call it Vanilla Valley. Like it's like, I mean, I call it that. I don't know.
I statements.
Yeah, right.
I statements.
Yeah, that's an I statement. But we get there, and I'm killing Northern Colorado as a junior high age kid. My dad's a college level coach, so he sees and he's like, if you want to be good, we have to get you out of here. Because if you really want to play college basketball, you can't just beat up on these white kids in Northern Colorado all day because it's not going to happen. The competition level isn't there. It's just not the right place for it. So what did he do? He went and looked in Denver and found basically AAU programs in Denver that were not AAU at the time. They were like club, whatever that was, in the late 90s. Before Nike and Adidas came in and started sponsoring everything.
Right.
And he finds me in the hood in Denver at a program called Joint Effort. It was basically a program to get kids out of doing bad shit outside of school who had some athleticism and could play ball, that kind of a program.
Right.
Yeah, so and he would put together teams and take them to tournaments and take them to summer leagues and stuff. And so my dad's like, we need to get you there because you need to play against kids who are from a different place, from a different arena, from a different part of life, who have probably experienced different things. Not to mention, the talent level is going to be much bigger because it's a bigger city. There's a bigger pool to grab from. So I went there, and I would say 90% of the practices and games, I was one of 2 white kids, maybe 3, and I was definitely the only dude from Northern Colorado for like 2 to 3 years of that. But I learned so much about not only basketball, but just everything you're talking about.
Yep.
The social aspect to it, the culture of basketball, working my ass off because I immediately was like, yo, I am not the best guard here. Like, I've been the best guard in Fort Collins for a few years. And I come down here and I'm like, I'm not even close. I got to work my ass off to get there. And it wasn't until I was in that bigger pool of talent that I saw that.
Right.
And I was smart enough, to my credit, to see it and be like, I want this. I'm going to go work my ass off to do it. But my dad was also smart enough to see it and say, if you really want this, this is what we have to do.
Right.
And that, is a perfect example of what you're talking about.
I think it's a clash where we're at in the world. And again, again, I think in just this room and the spaces that I've had the pleasure of playing basketball in, there's been an abundance of diversity and different cultures and backgrounds that I've built and learned from. But I think going forward, and again, I'm not going to say that this is really the case maybe at the high school level, but when we look at the NBA, right, it is a black space, right, and it's full of really rich black men, right, and God bless LeBron particularly, and I think guys behind him, they've given voice to issues that are plaguing the black community, and that's created controversy. I think that creates tension. I don't even think it's wrong. It just creates tension. And I think, in a lot of ways, when given choices and druthers, right, folks are willing to avoid tension at all costs.
But that platform that people like LeBron have, I mean, thank God for him seeing it and realizing what the platform is. Because if the issues don't come up, if the things don't get spoken about by somebody who has the ability to speak about them, like, when are they ever going to get discussed?
Right.
Sometimes from that, I mean, we all know this. You see where America is now. But, from that tension, hopefully, something good will rise out of it because the discussion will come from the tension.
As long as we can, find that common ground to have the conversation.
Yeah, and that's the hard part for a lot of people.
Right, it's hard, but it's like, look, let's have thankfully this guy can do a lot of great things with the basketball, but it really is that comment about more than an athlete and, using his platform. And to a degree, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, longer than that, 30 years ago, the flack against Michael Jordan was that he wouldn't use his platform. Exactly. And, to me being the Michael Jordan apologist, as I am.
No doubt about it. Yeah. That's your role in our family.
Thankfully, he did not. Don't let that go. Thankfully,
we need to get into some of that.
Mike had to do what Mike had to do to put the game of basketball in the position from the marketing endorsement opportunities that now these guys are getting. They're a benefactor of that because Mike did play the corporate role. He did play the corporate role. Jamal, the way you're looking at me right now, it just disgusts me in so many ways. But that's what we're going with, and
I'm gonna let you ride with it because I love you. I love you. I'm gonna let you get that off.
But I hear what you guys are saying. At the end of the day, these dudes and the way our world is right now culturally and the levels of not wanting to have those conversations, you got guys like LeBron stepping up, you got Steph Curry stepping up. I'm not going to the White House.
But my fear, and I rock with them dudes and champion them, is that, but my fear still too, and we've had this discussion, Jeff, is that what happens is, and I'll give put my teacher of African American Studies hats on, is what they've done with Dr. King, right? They've taken robust work of Dr. King, like he's written books and tomes, and if you take a quote for King and just throw that quote and be like, that's the quote, right?
Yeah.
The content of our character, not the color of our skin. And you don't give.
Where's the context behind it?
And so then it just becomes empty.
Yeah.
And so what I worry about is that Bron and Steph and all those guys, they just become sound bites. And then at some level, like, what is the plague of America? What is our sickness? Our sickness is ignorance. Our sickness is that we don't have the baseline intelligence to understand the complexities of how we all live well together. And so it's
But by the way, okay, so I'm with you on that. I'm going to challenge you though.
here we go.
My challenge is simply this, and it's simple. It's not really a challenge. Everybody has a lane and a position that they have to play.
Yes, sir.
LeBron and Steph have to play their lane in the way that they can and articulate race in the way that can be digested to a degree by people.
Palatable.
Yeah.
It's then becomes the work of those people after that. Like, how do we create the conversation? How does the Jamal Adams, Casey Close is an agent, by the way. Shout out to Casey Close, Excel Sports Management. Derek Jeter's agent. Man, I went there. He's been on my mind. Casey, I'm going to reach out to you.
Yeah.
So, how do we, though, take, when we see Bron, and how do we go back to our communities and use basketball, use sport as a unifier to have these open dialogues? And that's the role of those people who aren't on the highest platform, but the ones who are doing, let's call it, for the lack of a better term, the worker bees, to key in this conversation in different communities. We don't do a very good job of that. I think there's certain people, you being one of them, who take their hat off and you go into the communities and you have these conversations and you challenge the establishment as a director of cultural diversity here at Loyola High School. You challenge people to, like, open themselves up to a world and a discussion that they haven't had before. That's what our role is to do. So
How do we do it? We do it
Yeah.
just like Casey talked about 5 minutes ago.
Right.
You do it through encounters. So at the baseline of my belief about working in equity and inclusion is this, right? It's hard to hate someone you know, someone whose story you know. If I know your story, right, and you might line up politically diametrically opposed from me, but if I know that this environment produced you, can't hate you, right? And how do I get that? That's via encounter. We had an encounter at the back of a van.
Yeah.
Then our encounter led me to hang out with Casey on multiple occasions. And now that encounter allows us to have this conversation.
Yeah.
The issue is that what we have allowed to happen in America that is like the silent killer is our silo-ness. It is that we live in homogeneous pockets.
Yeah.
And that everyone we surround ourselves, not us specifically,
exactly like us.
and we don't understand it because LA is the
LA's
mix of the
different.
mix.
Yeah, it is.
But if we go to other pockets of America, Fort Collins, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, I don't even know those
Portage
places.
Central,
I'm not,
Portage, Michigan.
But
right.
Yeah.
And you have these homogeneous communities,
Yep.
right? And I can yell at my Facebook page,
Yeah.
screw Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
man,
conversation.
it's so interesting that I'm with you 100% on
It's
that.
encounters.
It wasn't so. I spent a good part of my life in Colorado, Gettysburg, but it wasn't until really that I moved to LA that I saw firsthand what you're talking about. Because I lived here for a few years, and I instantly was like, man, I'm the minority here. Like, this is even though I've been in basketball my whole life and had all these experiences, like, your day-to-day life is different in a place like LA, New York, Chicago. And it wasn't until I was here for a few years, and all of a sudden, like, I start going back to Colorado, and what's the first thing I notice? I go out to dinner, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of fucking white people in here. Like, and it felt weird to me after a few years in LA. And I thank that, like, that's one of the things I love about LA. And I thank myself for moving here for that exact reason.
Big up myself.
Yeah, right? Like,
I like to thank myself.
I like to thank myself for myself.
Yeah,
All right.
that's some Snoop Dogg shit.
Yeah,
I love
right.
that shit.
That is. My 12-year-ago self. I'd like to thank you.
No, but that's real.
It go down in the paint. In the paint. It go down in the paint. In the paint. It go down in the paint. In the paint. It go down in the paint. In the paint.
So we'll stay specific to LA, but we know what it is. So it's a conversation we've had with your godfather before around school systems And whatever community you're living in, you can legitimately go through your entire elementary school, your middle school, your high school potentially, and have very limited interactions with another minority based upon private schools in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing about learning how to socialize with other groups. If you're going to isolate yourself in these certain school systems and stay in these certain communities, which LA has a bunch of them, you still might not ever have to come across any diversity whatsoever. You could isolate yourselves from that. So I challenge those people in those communities who know that they're isolated and they know why they're isolating themselves to step outside of that isolation, which is why kids come to Loyola, because they feel like they're going to be able to, it's a safe environment for these kids to come and dabble in diversity.
So again, so here I go again, challenging you, and it's not really a challenge. This is what I would argue though. So yes, altruistically and globally, we know and we can prove there's books that diversity leads to greatness, and my life is better if I know different people and I have different experiences. I get around stuff I never would have if I'm around different people. So then the big question is why? In particular, let's call a spade a spade. Why isn't white America like venturing out in different spaces? And the answer in a nutshell to me is simple. The answer is it doesn't hurt them or cost them anything not to have perspective different than their own. Doesn't cost you. I can live 80 years on this earth and meander my way through a fairly homogeneous white world. Yeah. And if I did not understand like the origins of Kwanzaa or if I didn't understand Shabbat, or I didn't understand what it means to have a quinceañera, and not having that knowledge never, ever, ever kept me from something I wanted, then why would I venture into that space? Inversely, as a person of color who wants to navigate what is successful America, me and you, my man, corporate America, finance, for 11 and 12 years, we had to be well-versed and multicultural. We needed to be able to wake up. I tell people this all the time. One of the most like poignant days of my life was a day that I woke up in the morning, went to Merrill at 4. I'm trading equities. The second part of my day was taking Dan Schneider around as he was doing a road show for one of his IPOs for one of his internet companies, the guy that owns the Redskins. I spent the morning with him. Then that night I had to go to a black tie event. So I'm like Merrill corporate offices in a limo with Dan Schneider talking about playing basketball at Columbia and introducing them to billion-dollar investors. To then I had a black tie event that night, so I go and get my hair cut at my man Esteban on 39th and Crenshaw, and that experience is totally different. That's my man. And on a, again, circular, Esteban was Kobe's barber for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Right. And God bless. R.I.P. Kobe and Gigi and the 7 others. But so that environment is, I always say this, I had to use like different English at different points of my day.
100%.
Yeah. So I get my haircut and then boom, tie tuxedo that night for a gala where Pam and I were probably 1 or 2.
3 of y'all were there, and the other one might have been a server, which is what we're saying, but it's the facts of the fact. So that reminds me of, like, I remember at Merrill walking into different client meetings that you had to have. I had a meeting with a 75-year-old white man who in 1978 started buying ExxonMobil stock. He was not expecting me to be the dude that's walking in there. My mentor at the time, Dan, I'm losing his name. Anyway, he was a solid financial advisor. He was very successful. He had left and went to Morgan and some other place after that. But he was a great dude. He's like, Jeff, you're going to go take this meeting. So I roll out and I take this meeting. The guy did not expect to see me. But he was from the Midwest. Like, you have to find all these different commonalities to make that person feel comfortable of the fact that the first thing that he sees is going to walk in is a black dude.
Yeah.
A 6'5" white dude.
6'5"
a 28-year-old walking with a suit and tie on, and having to connect with that while I had already been listening like Biggie or Jay-Z rolling up into the meeting, and then going back to my office and then being one of a handful of minority FAs at Merrill Lynch at the time, and then going back to my community of talking the different dialects that I talk when I'm not in a professional manner. But it's all crazy. You have to be versed in those things. You're right. So you have to be bringing it all back. You have to be versed in all those different things as a minority, whereas in the grand scheme of the world, in the majority, you don't have to actually ever do that at any point in time. And you could live your entire life without having to ever have to do that song and dance and have these different skill sets to be in a different place. But that's why, the good of it for me is that's why my network is crazy.
Yeah. Right. Well, I would argue this, right? It's somewhat controversial, right? And I would say this, right? That we are experts in white comfort. If you ask me, hey, what are you really good at? I can coach a little basketball, pretty well read, right? I'm articulate. Cold.
Yeah.
Cold. I love it. You speak so well. Oh, yeah, he went to Ivy League school. Probably what I'm really good at is coalition building, particularly with white folks, right? Yeah. And I have found a way to tamp down anything that would come across as intimidating or threatening. Yeah. And I struggle with that, Jeff. It feels like I'm bumping up against the wall of what we would quote unquote call selling out. But that is the angst. That is the angst of Black success. That's the crux of it. Like, how can I be authentically Black and me and ride with my culture and my people and my history while understanding that to swim in the waters that America calls successful, that at some points that I got to tuck it in.
I spend probably 90% of my time thinking about that because
all the time.
And if it wasn't for the fact that I work for myself, doing other things for myself now, where I'm not in the quote-unquote,
you're not in the office every day,
office setting anymore. Or it's empowered me to be able to say things, empowered me to post things on my Instagram.
Sure.
To be like, yo, this is fucked up. What's going on? And I'm not afraid of losing my job.
You're not gonna walk in and get fired by somebody,
or whatever it might be. I can speak more authentically of who I am because I am the proudest of Black men that you're gonna ever meet. And I know, Jamal, you're the same way. And I don't wear it as a badge of honor. I love the fact that I love when I walk into the room and I'm the only dude because. In a lot of ways, because they're gonna pigeonhole me. They're gonna be like da. And I'm gonna be hit them with the curveballs. Nope. That you thought that was my story. Nope. Here's my fucking story. And then still be like, look, still talk culturally about the police brutality shit is fucked up.
Yeah.
How your hiring practices in this corporation. You can't. The Rooney Rule. Oh, I'll tell you why it's a freaking joke.
Yeah.
It's because of all these things you haven't done prior to a person even getting to become a college or a professional coach. That you've left out a whole group of folks. That's why the diversity doesn't happen at the top anymore. That's why the Rooney Rule doesn't work. Same thing when I listen to all these
because
corporations.
the steps below it aren't there to
diversity
give it success.
In America, the same shit you hear is because you're not going to the places to go find the fucking talent. The talent's there. So I don't know, man.
Well, those spaces culturally are different than the other spaces, and so, right. I'll live with this. I'm reading a book by Ibrahim Kennedy called "How to Be an Anti-Racist," right? And it's his second book. The first book was Stamped from the Beginning.
So what's the name again?
Ibrahim Kennedy. It's got two books. The first book's called Stamped from the Beginning. The second one's called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And he posits there's three types of political people in the world. There are bigots and racists. There's that space. There are what we call integrationists, and I'll talk about that. That's, I think, where a lot of people live, and that there's a problem there. And then there's truly anti-racist. The integrationist says, you persons of color, if you will acquiesce and you're salvageable, but you've got to assimilate. Right? Black folks would be just fine if they would go get an education, if they would go and get this, if they would go do that, and then we would accept them, right? But the problem is that if you're in that middle space, you still believe inherently there's a deficit in being Black, right? Yeah. A true anti-racist says that no group of people operates at a deficit at all, and that we welcome all cultures as they are to this space. And if we do that, and we really believe in the melting pot, then that's true diversity equity, and inclusion. But if we live in this middle, like,
Yeah.
we'll take the migrants that want to come to America as long as they are working, have a job, have wealth. Like we have conditions, we set conditions.
It's them that have to assimilate or
Right.
jump in. They have to do the work to impress me.
Yeah, change
As
your
a thing,
name.
right? Exactly.
Right.
As opposed to me having to be the one that like, oh, maybe I should be more open-minded about this, or maybe I should realize that they're human beings just like I am.
We got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
We got a lot of work to do, and it's again, encounters, man. Like, right?
Yeah.
If you believe inherently, right, that certain folks are prone to certain behaviors, right? Until I gotta first get you to understand that the fallacy in that belief that they're inherently human, and that any incidents of malfeasance or bad behavior is that those incidents happen in every sect of people, no matter what. Mm-hmm. Right? There's evil in all of us, regardless of color, creed, and religion.
This is why in the paint.
This is why this exists.
This is why it exists, to be able to discuss these topics that we feel need to be addressed, and that the people who are listening out there will hear us having a dialogue, two black guys and a white guy having a dialogue on this, and then take some of this and have this conversation to provoke conversation that we all can feel included in that conversation. This is phenomenal, and it's part of what we wanted to talk about as well today.
Yeah.
If I'm going to take a step back, I want to zone back in on family. I want to zone back in on your kids. I want to talk about how I want to talk you and Diddy's love story. Sorry, Diddy as in Pam Adams, but her nickname is
P.
Diddy.
Yes.
so the love story between you guys, because it's important to show this narrative about, I think, especially nowadays, is the love story, romance, and people being committed to each other from very young, from teenagers, and then evolving through that, and then you get two lovely children out of this, and then I wanted to talk about the fact that the names are Jalen and Gerard as well.
Right.
I want to get to that. So
I know why
you want to start.
I know you can get to the back end because
you start
go
like
Michigan, but yeah, man. Best thing ever happened to me is that I met this young lady when we were both 13 or 14 years old. Pam Warren of Inglewood, up to no good. Friends, she went to grammar school with my point guard, and like he did in high school, he made an assist, introduced us. I would say at the essence of where we've been successful is that Pam and I were friends first, and then obviously grew into lovers and soulmates, and then God willing, we make it in September, and that's be 25 years of marriage, right?
Wow,
and that's
congrats on
thank
that,
you, man.
It's still a young man.
Yeah, I'm blessed, man. I found her early. She's dope. She's smart. She's tough. She is thoughtful. She is compassionate. She's the world's greatest mom, and no disrespect to our moms in this room, but I watch her and the way that she cares about my kids. Again, thinking about the unfortunate incidents of this Sunday, the loss of Kobe and Gigi and the other seven. Raising kids is a partnership, and we didn't always agree, but I would say good golfers, we ham and egg it. We filled in each other's holes where things that I wasn't great at, she was great organizing and getting in the schedule. And then I always thought that I was really good and in tune with the kids and how they're feeling, which is probably not typical of our gender roles, but I did a lot of the nurturing and big up in the kids. And so we're blessed, man. Jalen and Gerard are both college grads, 23, 24, trying to figure out what they want to be in life. We want to support them in that. And I would say that, I am who I am because I know I'm loved. Those three love me unconditionally, and I them. And so it makes navigating this harsh world a lot more palatable, knowing that I got like three rocks that got my back and I got theirs.
That's incredible, man.
So, that's my answer. And then
that's a hell of an answer.
And then their names, right? Like So I don't know how, I don't know why,
I'll tell you.
but like
Go ahead.
I do kind of, but like I just had a fascination with University of Michigan athletics.
Go blue.
And the Fab Five, even though I'm older than them by a scope, was like I think the Fab Five were a derivation. So if I think about my fandom, like I love the Lakers and the Niners, but like college basketball, probably the first college basketball team that really made me like, yo, was the Running Rebs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Stacey Augman and
LJ.
Larry, LJ, and all them
Yeah,
guys.
Greg Anthony.
Right? And then I would argue that the Fab Five are derivative,
They're 2.0.
right, of
Yeah.
2.0,
Yeah,
right?
2.0.
Right? And I just always thought that Jalen Rose has so much swag. Still do. Like, he's one of my favorite.
Shout out
He's one
Jalen.
of my favorite broadcasters.
Yeah,
like, I
he's
listen to everything he does.
Me too.
And so,
Me too.
Baby Girl
Yeah.
was born. I just always thought it was a beautiful name, right? And we thought we'd feminize it by throwing a Y in there, Jaylyn. And if I'm 100% honest, if I meet another damn Jalen in my life, thinking I was original, that name is like,
It's everywhere
Baby
now.
Girl looks at me all the time like, God bless Daddy. I meet so many Jalen's. Boys, girls, whatever, so many.
And they're all around her age.
They're all around,
That's why
like
it's
plus
'cause
or minus.
Yeah.
Like,
Jay
that's
Ro-
how big.
Yo, Jay
that's
Rose
how-
is prolific,
He
dude.
is,
And
man.
no
He
one
Keep it
talks
on-
about that.
Keep it 100.
Yep.
He's
Keep it
prolific,
100.
dude.
He reaches levels.
He's prolific.
Yeah.
And then there was a fullback at the University of Michigan that played at. He played at Michigan, but he played for the New York Giants. And when I lived in New York, right, and bum ass NFL, you could only get the local market games.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of Jets and Giants games. And I always thought Gerard Bunch was like a manly dude. And I was like, if I have a son, I'm gonna name him Gerard. Like Gerard Bunch, like both Michigan dudes, like straight up. And Pam was always like, I like that idea of having her. All of the people in her family are P's. Her mom is Pearl, her dad was Paul, and it's Paula, Pam, and Patricia. She's like, I want us to write with the J's. And so we got to stay in the J names.
Yeah.
So Jalen and Gerard, man.
Man, that's great.
My kids,
That's
man.
so cool.
Well,
AKA Boogie and Rizzle.
Well, I feel like we shout him out every show because we do. Unbreakable performance. Yo, Mr. Bunch, you've heard it here first. You have someone who's one of my brothers, who named his son after you.
That's word up,
Yeah.
dog. That's word. So we better meet.
We need to get him on the
And he's
show.
like by the way, he's the greatest dude. Greatest
Of
dude.
course, man.
Man,
Dude, I was a fan, man. I just thought it was such a dope name.
I appreciate you giving us the history on that, because I think that's very important.
That's
I love
such-
your
yeah.
family story. Your family story is extremely important. The love story is also very important. And what was the byproduct of that love story of your two beautiful kids who drive me crazy? They talk more shit.
They love us
Jalen
Uncle Jeff, boy. They love us
me, but
Uncle
they
Jeff,
talk
man.
more shit to me than you could ever imagine. Specifically,
Of course,
Jalen.
man, 'cause
Happy
they love
birthday,
you.
Jalen.
That's
They
love,
love
though,
you,
man.
yeah,
That's love.
exactly.
It goes down in the paint. In the paint. It goes down in the paint. In the paint. It goes down in the paint. In the paint. It goes down in the paint. In the paint.
The game is won in the fourth quarter. Let's go.
Fourth quarter, baby. Fourth quarter. Fourth quarter.
Let's go back to where we started going to at the beginning.
Yeah.
We were about to talk about the elite level.
Oh, like
because
the AAU stuff.
have a
Yeah, yeah,
unique,
yeah.
All right, let me just go into it. You have a unique coaching experience, Jamal, where you've done it. You do it at a high level, high school wise. Look, we can talk about some things like you were offered college opportunities. You chose to stay here because you're a family man again, because your son was going to senior year, so you chose to stay here and not pursue the college opportunities. But then you've been offered opportunities because you positive coaching award. You are well respected. I would say in LA, if people are going to give you their 5 favorite people, this could be just a random poll selected. Your name now, because you've been doing this for a minute, is in the top 5 of coaches that have been here in Los Angeles, hands down. And because of that, you get offered opportunities. So kind of tell us a little bit about the opportunities that you've done with EYBL.
Right.
That you've done now. You're doing this past year with Why Not.
Right. So
Kind
yeah.
of tell how you got into that part of coaching. I think that's good for those coaches out there to understand the work that has to go in to get into those positions and to get asked to do those things because of the level of respect.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a network thing, and shout out to my man Russell Westbrook, Ray Westbrook for and Reggie Morris. Those guys kind of run Why Not, which is a third-year program in EYBL, Nike EYBL, Elite Youth Basketball League. And Splash, man, 2 years in, we've made the Peach Jam Finals or National Championship Finals 2 years in a row. Last year, I was lucky enough to be asked to be part of that coaching staff. And first of all, let me just say straight up, man, EYBL is different. It's a whole different animal, man. Like, and I didn't know. I knew it because I see the hype. And let's just say that I'm be honest, at 47, I'm a cynic of like some of the flash in the pan hype stuff that you hear.
Yeah.
Yo. That's pro basketball, bro.
Yeah.
Cats can flat out hoop. And I'm amazed at 17, 18 years old, the talent and even the IQ and the acumen. This past summer, one of the best basketball experiences of my life was coaching the Why Not team. We were really talented group. When it's all said and done, we had 4 top 75 guys, right? And our best player, Jalen Green, last week was just named number 1 now on ESPN's latest top 100.
Wow.
Pro, no doubt. He's Ray Allen remix, right? A little bit more of a handle.
I already love him. Like,
probably more athletic, right?
Which
He
is-
might,
which is-
he don't
that's
probably
nuts.
strap
Crazy,
it.
bro.
He probably doesn't strap. And you know what?
Ray
I'm
was
thinking
so
old
athletic.
Ray.
Yeah, he was
Young Ray, yeah,
Young
he's.
Ray was explosive.
So all I would just tell you, if you don't just Jalen Green, whoo, and let me just shout out to Jalen, like humble, coachable, yes sir. Like and I'm telling you guys, when I'm telling you rock star, again, it's different, man. We're playing at Peach, man. It's a 3-hour wait to see our games because of Jay. We play, kid, it's in these barnyard basketball with 9 courts.
Yeah, huge.
And he can't get to the vans. Pictures, autographs, take a picture with, and it's kids, it's grown men, it's nuts. So Jay, Namari Burnett, who just made McDonald's All-American, Chi-Town kid, but is prepped out here on the West Coast, is a stone cold killer. My boy Devin Askew, who I think is Mr. Big Shot remix. I think Chauncey Billups,
yeah.
big guard, modern day, going to Kentucky, and then a host of other guys. And I don't want to not say all the other kids because I don't want to be a hater, but really good team. And we had our ups and downs, but they let us coach them, right? Yeah. They were competitive, and we game planned, and we meditated. We had a full-time strength guy that was massage. We traveled, and again, shout out to the Westbrooks who took care of us. We traveled like pros. We ate like pros. We played like pros. And man, the difference between them kids and the EYBL and your run-of-the-mill high school kid, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not the same
It's
stratosphere.
not even
To your
close,
question earlier, Case, it's not even in the same stratosphere.
Yeah.
Now we know all those kids aren't going to pan out because just the funnel gets tighter and everyone can't get there.
Yeah.
Everyone can't get there. But I'm telling you,
What's the those guys? You get them and you have to coach them up in practice and get them in a finite short amount of time to get them ready for tournament. Do you have a chance to talk to them about their workout and their work ethic when they're not theoretically playing in the
when they're not there?
What the hell? Because I think parents and kids need to understand these kids are fucking working on their craft.
So because we live in the Instagram, YouTube era, right? As I get to know them, we exchange handles and I just watch.
Yeah.
And them kids they're doing what Kobe was doing. Like when we watch Kobe behind the scenes.
Yep.
Right? And he's lifting and running on the track and then shooting and then going back in the gym later and they're working on 500 right elbow pull-ups. Right? To the specifics, right?
Yeah, just right elbow.
I'm watching
500. Make 500.
I'm watching these kids do that, man. Now my worry is that there's so many hours. We've read stories, right?
Yeah.
That guys are going to the league and the leagues are doing their what do you want to call them? Their physicals, and they're saying that their bodies are older than their chronological age.
Yeah.
Right. There's this
So much mileage.
Zion, right?
Yeah.
Like so there's this give and take, but yeah, man. Yeah, like, I know there's been some people that have been arguing that and debunking the the Malcolm Gladwell idea of 10,000 hours to create human expertise.
Right.
Hey, some of these dudes that I've had the opportunity to be around, they are pushing an envelope of 10,000 hours of work.
At 17.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
It's
yeah,
funny,
and
'cause,
let's
like,
look
I
at the
think back-
economics. I'm sorry.
That's
go ahead.
okay. I think back like when we were all playing, and like we all had to do a lot to get to college, right?
Yeah.
Like we were shooting 500, 1,000 jumpers a day in the summers when you're not like at practice and
Playing
whatnot.
Bird versus Magic.
Right, yeah,
by
like
ourselves,
exactly
yeah,
by
right.
yourself, like
Yeah.
beat Michael. I remember that. Like you
yeah.
had, and every shot you missed was 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
And every shot you made
It was one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And now I'm hearing this kind of stuff, and I'm like, man, we didn't even touch what these kids are doing, just because like the advancement of the training. And
Well,
the
I would also
vitality,
argue
right?
that it's a cottage industry.
Yeah,
Guys weren't making 100, 200, 300, 400 grand doing it.
that's true.
Because if they did, we'd have known them.
Yeah.
And our parents probably would have paid.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
I'm not hating no trainer. Shout out to the dudes.
Yeah,
Get it?
the good ones.
Get in
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
fit in.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, it's a cottage industry.
It's like-
I can coach I can be in basketball and never ever have to make a decision on subs, timeouts, and make a good living.
yeah,
Very true.
that's nuts.
Yeah.
It's just such a different ballgame.
So,
man.
so those kids are look. You can see it on the gram. They're working their asses off. They might be overworking. That's why I always talk about recovery is a very important point of why you're doing your strength conditioning and all those things. You got to recover at some point. Take care of your body so you can have a long career. Like
Amen.
Brown is proven to do. It's very important. And then I'm also like, you can't always be doing one discipline. I'm a guy like, hey, if you can play 2 sports for a while, play 2 sports for a while.
Do it.
Then when it's time to really narrow down, middle of high school, then you can kind of funnel yourself in that direction. But okay, so you're coaching these dudes, man. You're at Peach Jam. Like, the level of intensity of top 75 guys playing against other top dudes. Like, I want to just, like, I watched a little bit, but can you, like, as a fan, like, I want you, can you talk to it as a fan of the game?
You
Not a
see,
coach.
I'm smiling
fan.
so hard. Okay, right? We make the final 8. We play Team Texas. Was my man, number 1 player up until last week, Cade Cunningham, going to Oklahoma State, 6'8" point guard. They got this other kid on this team named, like, I think Greg Thomas, 6'9" pogo stick. When I'm saying he's biting the rim, I think literally. And they got 2 more like him. And honestly, yes, I'm coaching. So I'm sitting on the bench. First off, it's packed. I got people's knees in my back. And I look across from me, and it's Cal, Coach K, Big Pat Ewing, right, Jawan. Right, it's the who's who. There's not an inch of space that's not the court. And I'm telling you, some of the plays made in that game, like a couple times I turned to Dave Rabiba, who's my coach, and my other 2 assistants, my man Arturo Jones, who's at Lusinger, and my man A.B. Anthony Brown, who's now at Harvard as well. Like a couple times I just looked at them like, holy shit. I'm talking about alley-oops at the top of the square that I'm catching and then wiping my tail with it and then dunking it. Like, holy Euros from the 3-point line. I mean, coming off ball screens at 25 feet, take that.
Man.
Back and forth and back and forth. And they were the number 1 seed. We were 8. And we beat them. And I was like, yo, we get to the semifinals. We play Boo Williams' team with the 7-1 kid going to
Legendary
Duke.
Boo Williams.
Legendary,
yeah.
dude.
Boo Williams.
Legendary.
Google Boo Williams, people. Legendary.
And that game is on ESPN3 and back and forth. And they got a couple of guards that are stupid. And we win that game late. And we played, we unfortunately lost to Mocan, the team out of Missouri, Kansas, who had a 7-1 kid that's at Oregon right now, out of Mali, Africa, who illegal, cheat code. And then a bunch of guards with straps. And we lost our 6'10" kid, got hurt, so we're playing small. We're going 6'8", we're going 6'8", 6'6", 6'4", 6'4", 6'4".
I love that.
And we
And that's
lost.
small. I'm
yeah,
like 5'10".
that's small. And we battled to overtime, and Lou and Jay run a play. Dave called a phenomenal play. It's our ball out of bounds, down 1.5 seconds to go. Runs a great little misdirection alley in front of him. I think Jalen was fouled. He unfortunately missed the crimp, and we lost by 1 to lose Peach. But shout out to our whole Why Not team. We've been featured. You know that they have that show. LeBron's producing the show.
Yeah.
The first season's on right now with Cole Anthony. Next season, we'll feature Why Not. We'll be.
Oh wow.
And I was Mike for a lot of that. And,
okay.
And I got to tell a story, right? So I got to tell a story. We're going through some stuff. We're not playing really well. And you've heard me use this expression before. My dad used to use it with me a lot. And I think we're caught up in a little bit about me and not playing the right way. And we're meditating before Dave comes down. And I got the guys together. And I was kind of like the pregame guy, scout, hype guy. And I was like, yo, man, if we going to play the right way and we're at Peach and we want to get where we want to be, we got to let our motherfucking nuts hang. Let them hang. Like, as I was like, just let them stop being concerned by everything else. Let them hang and just go out and play basketball. They loved it. The guys loved it. We
just released all the pressure.
Like
for them.
immediately.
Dude, so like every 1, 2, 3, let them hang. So hashtag let them hang.
Come on.
On the mics, on the camera, like Devin's getting buckets, let them hang. Like, I'm the equity and inclusion guy.
That's amazing.
So if you hear this, and a year from now I've lost my job, please hire me. It's a basketball colloquialism.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
But if you think about it, though, that's let them hang in life.
Yeah.
Like in general.
Well, that's a
it's
decent motto.
Some might argue
motto.
it's a little, on the sexist side, but shoot, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Hey, words to live by.
Hey.
Pops put me on, man.
Yeah. We need to come back. We need to come back when that airs.
Yes.
And let's talk about it after it airs.
Yeah, I would love to.
That's amazing.
Those stories are fucking incredible.
Yeah, it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be dope when it comes out.
Man,
I'm happy for you. All right, so
Yeah.
to that point, man, how do you fucking balance all this shit?
My wife might argue not so well. So, I have a problem. I struggle with saying no. But I believe life is best lived, right, when we get to use all of our talents and blessings, right? If I'll dig into my spirituality a little bit, right, I believe that, right, there's purpose, there's a calling. God put me in a position, blessed me with talents and gifts, and selfishness would be to hold them to myself, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be a selfish person, and I don't want to elevate myself like I'm some deity, but I know I'm blessed in a lot of ways, in talent and treasure and health, and that blessing, for me, the best thing I could do is to share it and to expand it, to give it to people, to give them access, to give them confidence, to give them belief, and I like to do all these different things, man. It's trite to say, but I've grown up always admiring the term of a Renaissance man, a man that can live and swim in different waters, and has a vast array of interests and areas of expertise. I think I surround myself with people like that who light up different parts of my brain, and I'm just fascinated by learning. Like when it comes down to it, right, I'm a super nerd, right? I blow your phone up all the time. Podcasts, books. Jeff, read this. Jeff's like, I know you and Moose probably like, this nerdy ass dude, leave me alone, man. I want to watch my Netflix or whatever, but I'm always shoving on you guys.
Makes me better.
Because I just believe, man, I believe differentiating yourself nowadays is that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So much of life is style over substance. I want to be a man of substance, G-Walk. And so, again, it goes back to the word I used earlier, encounters. Yeah. I grow every time I have a new encounter, right? Yeah. And that's a new experience for me to pass on to the next kid. I might be able to tell a kid 10 years from now, yo, my boy started a podcast that from here and blew up. You should call Casey G-Walk. They'll put you on blah, 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 blah. Right? And we changed the arc of that kid's life. What I want to do, G, like what I love, like when that day they put me in a box and folks are crying and saying whatever sweet nothings about me, if they said that, yo, this dude helped change folks' delta, like calculus term, but like if this was your trajectory and I was able to help change it so that you arc higher up, right, and you reach a higher level than you thought possible because of something I was able to help you with or give, then shit, that's a life well lived. And so, man, I keep trying to kind of hit that thing in as many ways as I possibly can. I want to lead. I want to force people to think. I want to force people to talk. And I want to force people to be a little bit uncomfortable because that stretches us.
That's like...
I mean, again, you get those opportunities where people just flow perfectly.
Yeah.
This dude's one of the brightest dudes that I know, and he makes, like, I hang out with him because he makes me better, and he'll challenge me, and I think to kind of bring it all, like, you have to be around people who are going to challenge your thought process, but also support you and love you in such a way they want to help make you better. So to your point about the delta, which is to elevate me, because you know what, I don't even think anybody really knows this. So as I'm transitioning out of my fashion world, I'm up here coaching whatever, and then Jamal literally told me, he's like, yo, G-Walk, man, you know what, you're really good at these like events, dude. You're really fucking good. I mean, it just comes naturally for you. Yeah. And I don't necessarily know if you know how natural it is. And every time you throw something, everybody leaves that a better person because you've brought all these people together. And for me, it's just, I just do it just the back of my hand. And by the way, I think other people's parties aren't that good. So
which is the truth.
So I'm going to create a space and an environment for people to come and enjoy themselves, and typically it's always aligned with doing something that's going to help a community,
some sort of organization, nonprofit or charity.
If he doesn't say that to me, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I go on and do event production. I don't know if I end up creating a scholarship for Derek Jeter's people. I don't know if I go on and do stuff for Serena and Venus. Like, I don't know if that happens if you don't put the battery in my back to be like, oh, have you ever thought about this G-Walk? Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to keep on doing maybe this fashion thing and, keep on building brands. But, so... you are that guy, and you are extremely valuable to not only me, but I've done a lot of talking. I know me and Casey have talked about community, especially with what's going on right now. Like, the community is what's going to uplift the Bryant family and the 7 other people who are lost. It's community. It's that love there,
and the people that are around them too that are suffering and hurting.
Exactly. You need that community. You need those people to support you and love you, and to also challenge you to make you better.
Yep. And
you are the absolute testament to that in my world, and I know that you are exactly that to hundreds of other people that you've coached, that you've taught, that you've interacted with throughout your life on God's green earth, and especially underneath this umbrella of Loyola as well. Like, this school needs you, Los Angeles needs you, this world needs you, and I thank you.
And we need more people like you. You talked about being an educator earlier. Like, that was your kind of broad term for, like, everything you do. And what you just said in the last 5 minutes is, like, the perfect definition of what an educator is to me. Like, it's all-encompassing. It's affecting lives positively. My dad was like that, too. He was a teacher and a coach, same kind of thing. And, like, I've always tried to go through life not being defined by one thing, but by many things. And trying to help other people not be defined by one thing, but by many things. And the way you so eloquently put it, like, expanded what I've always thought tenfold. So that was incredible.
You guys are dope, man, and I'm a supporter, a listener, and man, you guys got my undivided or undying love and support, man. This is dope, man. And again, man, we need good content. We need people to think.
Yeah.
You want to talk about where we are in America, man? We pushing buttons and we not thinking, man.
Pushing buttons that aren't attached to anything. Well, thanks, Jamal.
My man, appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Dope.
This has been a production of In the Paint Productions with executive producer Bill Boyd, executive producer Nick O'Connell, audio engineer and composer Kevin Rodriguez, and hosted by Jeff Walker and Casey Gutting. Thanks again for joining us.
Oh man, I got these ashy ankles working today. Oh shit.